one-on-one with the Grim One. I am your host, the Slayer of Posers, Master of Disaster, the most electrifying man in corpse entertainment, the Necrosexual! And joining me on this darkest of dispatch, we have the artist extraordinaire and very funny dude from Toxic Draws It. Welcome, Ben Fidler!
What's going on, gang?
How the hell are you, Ben?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
Grim. Very grim.
To be expected. These are grim times.
Indeed. Yes, the grimmest of times. And you're a very funny person, Ben. You're one of my favorite comedians because you're on one end, you're a wholesome dude, you're a family man, but like having a family is also brutal because when you have kids, that means you create a tiny skeleton with your wiener, which is the most brutal thing of all. And then you also kind of have that dark Viking sense of humor to go with it. So it's like a good balance between the darkness and the lightheartedness. So, and on top of that, you're also one hell of an artist.
Oh, thank you, sir. You as well.
An artist of meats and sweat. It's sometimes meat sweats. So this is one-on-one with the Grim One. What that normally means is that our guests will select one record, usually a metal album, that holds a special place in their heart. But this is also my damn show. I make the rules, and sometimes we like to flip the script. And in Ben's case, Ben is not really a metalhead. So instead of having him talk about his favorite Billy Joel record or something, we're going to actually talk about a favorite record of mine through Ben's very virgin ears. And I also want to give a shout out to my homie, Reed Messerschmidt, who once had a podcast called Reed Messerschmidt Gets Metal, and I'm basically ripping off his gimmick. The whole gimmick, Ben, was that Reed was a non-metalhead, and every episode his metalhead friend would introduce him to an album. So that's what we're doing in this edition. And the album that I selected is a proggy, epic, heavy metal masterpiece, Manilla Road, Crystal Logic from 1983. This is something that I'm embarrassed it took me this long to give a proper listen to. I have to give all the respect to my friends in Vengeful Oath from the Stroudsburg, Lehigh Valley metal scene because these dudes were telling me about how great this album was for high school, and it's been on my to-do list for 15 years. So I finally gave it a listen from start to finish very, very recently, and wow, that is the stuff that heavy metal hard-ons are made of. So I want to know, Ben, what did you think when you heard it?
You picked a good one. That was right up my alley. That made me want to grab my fire sword, hop on my space motorcycle, and go save a princess from an army of digital demons. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to describe it. And it's one of those records that you know what you're getting into when you see the album cover. It's this weird castle with dudes on horsebacks, and it looks like they're in the desert. It looks like a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, brought to life in the most 1983 album cover possible. Yes. So, yeah, so I definitely said make sure you listen to it from start to finish, especially an album like this because it is one hell of a journey. And prior to this record, Ben, what has your flirtations with heavy metal been?
So funny you should bring up Dungeons & Dragons because there are two metalheads in the group I DM every week, and they've been feeding me albums via Spotify to check out that have been all over the map. My buddy John is a big Oozing Wound fan, so he's been listening.
My grandmother loves Oozing Wound.
It's one of my new favorites.
Okay.
But they've been throwing out a ton of metal. Metal is probably the genre of music I am least familiar with. I look and act like I would be front row at every major metal concert that ever came through my area when I was growing up, and I have never really had any exposure to it, and I'm starting to dig it. I get it.
Yes, indeed, yeah. Well, you can like rock and roll, or you might not like rock and roll, but I think it can resonate if you are there for the showmanship or the entertainment. Besides heavy metal, like Oozing Wound, like what was the heaviest band you listened to?
A lot of punk, like older punk stuff too. Definitely, I've listened to some like G.G. Allin stuff. Like that would be the level or area of more hardcore stuff I've listened to. Yeah, just a lot of punk and then classic rock and country growing up because I'm from the sticks. So there's a lot of like Willie Nelson and the Highwaymen and stuff that was in my repertoire, if that's the right word for what I'm referring to.
Bearded music. Music for people with beards and facial hair.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think if you like classic rock, especially Manilla Road, is one hell of a gateway drug because it has elements. What I like about this record is it is all over the place. It sort of has like proto thrash metal. It was in 1983, so it was the same year that Metallica's first record came out, and it had a couple of like fast moments, but it also was very like, if you took the best parts of Black Sabbath and Thin Lizzy and Blue Oyster Cult and Pentagram and Merciful Fate and you Judas Priest and you kind of like put them in one album with some progressive fantasy themes, that is Manilla Road's Crystal Logic. And I don't know if you listen to all those bands, so I'm not just trying to vomit band names at you, but I think that it really is a super diverse and genre stretching album. And it's even more impressive that it came out in 1983 because the genres were still being invented or hadn't been invented yet.
So that was one of the things I did notice is the first two songs, Necropolis and Crystal Logic, were exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
And then it picks up real quick, and then it goes into some more like dreamscapey sort of floating in space segue songs that were really cool. But yeah, man, it was awesome. It was story and adventure. You can really get into it. I'm very visual, so I'm not really into like audio stuff at all. Obviously, I do a lot of drawing and visual art. And this was one where it's just, it gives you a lot of good mental pictures when you're listening to the lyrics, and the music feeds that. And then the album cover is obviously dope as hell and perfect for what the album cover was exactly what I expected. That's what I picture metal to be. Like this band is like what my simplification of metal was growing up.
Indeed. And I think you would also probably like Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. I don't know if you already listened to them, but that's the guitarist from Deep Purple's band after Deep Purple. And who does he have singing? Okay. Yeah, who does he have singing for that band? A guy named Roddy James Dio. So you have one of the most iconic metal voices.
I know Dio. Yeah. I'm down with Dio.
Yeah, it's Deep Purple and Dio in their own super group. So they have some pretty epic fantasy songs like "I'm the Man of the Silver Mountain," you know, and they have another song about a fucking wizard that like gets thrown off a mountain. There's a lot of heights and mountains in their music, as it is with
wizards,
epic heavy metal. You know, you're gonna have, especially in the early '80s, it's very, like you said, visual. Takes you on a musical journey, and the Crystal Logic is definitely one of those journeys. And I think that another reason why it's such a great album is because the songwriting is super crisp. Not only does it have those heavy metal hooks, but it just has some great classic rock sounding hooks. And it even has some songs like about being in love, kind of like pop rock songs. It almost goes into like Boston territory with the vocal harmonies.
Like ballady a little bit at some points and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's,
Yeah, and then it has, so it's all over the place. So that's a great album. I think that it would be an appropriate album to show somebody to blow their mind, whether you're somebody like me who's a pretty seasoned metalhead but still has to catch up on the classics and do my homework from time to time, to somebody with completely virgin ears.
All my metal is from like Heavy Metal, the animated movie, and that area of it. So this fit well into my idea of metal.
You're an artist and you're a funny motherfucker. And as somebody who is artistically inclined and also comedically inclined, I think that heavy metal is appealing because even if you don't like the music, you can see the humor and just the showmanship, the over-the-topness of it, the visual elements, the album covers, then also the artistic flair of these bands, whether it's how they look on stage or just their aesthetic. It's definitely metal adjacent to you.
Yeah. Album. So my dad had a massive or decent sized record collection as a kid, and a lot of Sabbath and stuff in there. Like we were saying, Cream, Steppenwolf, Deep Purple, but old school like 70s, 80s album art was what I liked. Like, metal album covers are something I could look at all day long, because they are, between just the painting from like the Molly Hatchet covers that they used to have and stuff, all the way to the more cartoonish, ghoulish Iron Maiden level shit. It's all so creative, and there's obviously like a tying theme, but the competition, it seems, for each band to one up the last in terms of just colorful, rich, violent, gory album art with like the wild style graffiti kind of letters that are a little more tamed in, or always have the barbed wire demonic feel. That was like the shit I love drawing. Fantasy stuff and sci-fi is my reading genre, so it's all there. And just for some reason, I never met up with it as a kid and listened to a lot of what I would say is the newer or more contemporary metal that came out while we were growing up.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you for not listening to a lot of that. Early 2000s were a pretty brutal time.
Yeah, but the camp and the pageantry on stage too, you gotta, as a stage performer with comedy, you gotta respect that level of commitment to just everything. Like corpse makeup and shit. That's insane, bro.
Oh, this whole thing? I just woke up with this.
Yeah, I just threw it.
Yeah. So, as an artist, what do you think do you have a favorite album cover or like comic book cover? Or like who's your holy trinity of artistic inspiration?
Man, I mean, the OG thing that got me into like comics and art as a kid was Bill Watterson with Calvin and Hobbes. I loved his combination of cartoonist absurdity with like flying off cliffs and eyes bugging out of the head, and how the characters would be so animated. But then he'd do a whole strip with like well-drawn nature scenes and a completely like out of an artist's sketchbook Tyrannosaurus Rex and level of stuff. And the combination of that has always been so appealing to me, where you can have goofy cartoons in a very well-drawn, artistically pleasing setting. And I think metal speaks to that a lot, with just the pulp fantasy style paintings, these like beautifully done paintings, but it's always these jacked dudes in loincloths, or chicks in like torn fur bikinis, or corpses coming out of hell with demons flying behind them, and just it's just so cool. It's a look into just like straight imagination, unfiltered, and that's what I dig about it. And they're so different. The color schemes, they all have the tying theme, but like all the old Spider-Man comics growing up, Venom, the way that Todd McFarlane and a lot of those guys would draw Venom with just the huge teeth and the giant tongue and the slime and stuff, and like the muscles and the web. That shit's just so cool. Yeah, and metal's got it all, and they put it right on their album covers, and then they're like, now we're going to sing music about this same shit, and that's what I'm really getting into now, is listening to the lyrics and a lot of the story stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course, you probably would love King Diamond, another corpse-painted entertainer, probably one of the first black metal bands besides Venom, and all of his albums are, or the majority of his albums are story-based, so it's all about like these ridiculous supernatural pulp stories with great album covers and artwork with both bands. So that's another one of Necro's essential listening. And Ben, you mentioned before how sci-fi and fantasy is sort of at the top of your literary reading and movie list. So, hey, baby, we're in quarantine for 6 months. What have you been watching? What have you been reading? What should we be checking out?
Oh, man. I've been reading a ton lately. I'm kind of switching off the audiobook kick I was on for a while and going back to just plain print. I just read the Berserker Wars, classic sci-fi pulp collection of stories. It's I believe it's what Terminator's based off, but it is just some artificial intelligence that went rogue and decided that all life in the universe had to be stomped out, and humans are the cockroaches of creation. We cannot be defeated. No matter how much these things try to step on us, we come back and destroy them. And what else have I been reading? Dark Ocean series is a good sci-fi pulp, just some quick, space pirate nonsense you can throw out there. And I just read Oryx and Crake, which is a newer dystopian novel about genetic engineering gone awry and the destruction of the world from a virus, which was a little surreal to read during the beginning of the pandemic. But just that heightened emotion and anxiety really kicked it into high gear while you're turning those pages.
All right. Some dystopia during dystopia.
Hell yeah, man. Double down.
Yeah, in case your children are like, hey, why is daddy up at 4 a.m. pacing back and forth? Go back to sleep. Indeed. And of course, Ben, tell us about, I would be remiss not to mention, Toxic Draws It, your artistic endeavors. So tell us about what's going on with Toxic.
Yeah, man. Cool part about quarantine is it's given a lot of people time to kind of set up and try to get their artistic stuff completed. So I've been helping a lot of friends. Just released our first children's book with Eric Todd, another comedian and music metal mother. And so we have a new book coming out, or just dropped, for kids about okapis, these crazy half-giraffe zebra things that live in Africa. And I've been doing a lot of side commission work, and I'm working on a couple graphics of my own that I'm hoping to get up and running in the near future. But right now, taking on commissions, doing some posters for friends, artwork for people, music, podcasts, all that stuff, and doodling on my own when I can. It's been pretty dope. I'm psyched.
And of course, I should mention you did a salacious, not one, but 2 necrosexual toxic portraits throughout the years. And I got to say, Ben, the new one looks like something you put on the cover of a cassette or a sticker. That's definitely something that I think we're going to have more of the world see.
Yeah, the team up of the metal artist is like right up my alley for what I like to draw. It's just creative, fun, funny. So it's got all these layers to it and lots of cool colors. And you always are throwing out inspiring content. So just hit me with a muse moment one day, and I decided I have to draw Necro. Got to do it.
Yes, the meat hunger was real, and it was sated with your pen strokes. Totally grim. So, Ben, a big part of the metal culture is, of course, going to concerts, moshing, getting your head split open in the front row. Now, with COVID, that's been put on hold a little bit, but I want to know, from a non-metalhead perspective, what is one of your favorite, or what's one of your craziest, most memorable live music experiences?
Oh, man. A lot of punk shows, so a lot of mosh pit stuff. Definitely saw a dude run from the opposite side of the mosh pit, jump, and just do a Superman punch straight into the side of this, like, nerdy-looking dude on the edge of the mosh pit who was just watching the show, knocked his glasses. Dude kept standing. I was proud of him for that. But, yeah, this one dude just ran across a 30-foot mosh pit and just jumped up and sucker punched this dude right in the head, right in front of me.
Wow. That's some
that
real...
was probably the craziest shit I'd seen, like, straight up at a show where this guy was just like, 0 fucks given. Boom!
It's crowd killed.
Yeah. And then... I was at a Dropkick Murphys concert once where I think I was in the 40th percentile for height and weight. I've never seen, it looked like just pro football teams were the only people at this concert. That was the scariest mosh pit I've ever been in my life because I was small.
Wow.
And, that was insane. Yeah. I don't think there was a dude around me at one point that was under 6'5".
Holy hell.
It was fucking nuts. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it, baby. Back in 2015, I challenged you to a Franzia drinking contest. But out of respect for your health and your family, I'm going to withdraw that challenge because you're now a provider and responsible adult. So we will have some other challenge in the future. But for now, you can sleep well, Ben, because I will find somebody else to sate my Franzia wine drinking contest appetite.
I'll actually still step up to the plate.
Okay. Yeah.
Fine with that. Yeah, I'll slap that bag. I'm not afraid of a box of wine.
Never mind, it's back on, motherfucker.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's set that shit up. I'm ready. I haven't been
some total
day drunk in a while.
Yeah, let's be some degenerates, right? Right? Yeah. Hey, once in a while, maybe you dodged a wine box shaped bullet.
It's like a boomerang, man. It just catches you in the back of the head when you least expect it.
Hell yeah. Sounds totally brutal. Well, thank you, Ben, for going one-on-one with the Grim One to talk about an album that definitely gave me a throbbing heavy metal hard-on, and I hope it gave you one too. What do you want to say to all the perverts watching at home?
Keep listening to metal. Throw me some metal on Toxic Draws It if you want to find me on Instagram. And once this quarantine's over and you want to come see some comedy, I'm touring with the Looking Glass Review Burlesque Troupe, and I'll be hopefully back up and running with them soon. So ready to see some titties and some giggles.
Well, thank you, Ben, for going one-on-one with the Grim One, baby. And hey, to all you perverts watching at home, give them some recommendations of some good albums to listen to. No poser shit. Man. Stay brutal, Ben.
Stay brutal, brother.